Okay. Okay. Good morning, students. We are back again in English class for the second years. So we have already done a little bit of prose and poetry, which we shall go in detail after some time. Today, I wanted to start with non-detail. Non-detail are mostly stories written by it is very simply written by different authors, and the understanding of the lesson is very easy, so that you can write the question and answers without any problem. As you know, in non-detail, you do not have annotations. You only have question and answers, and a passage is given from the lesson. So coming to the first lesson, it is the woman on platform number 8. This is written by Ruskin Bond. Most of you during your school days would have probably heard of Ruskin Bond. He is a famous writer and writes lots of stories for the children. In this, he describes about a 12-year-old boy called Arun. Arun is only 12 years old, and he studies in a boarding school. Now just imagine, he's only 12 years old and traveling all alone in the train. From his hometown, he came to Ambala station, where he had to take the train, and the train was arriving at 12 midnight. A 12-year-old boy traveling alone, catching a train at 12 midnight is slightly dicey. Most of the parents are very hesitant to send the children all alone. But here, Arun traveled all alone from his hometown and came to Ambala station, from where he would take the train to his boarding school. The train was as usual late, so he whiled away the time loitering on the platform, feeding the dogs, window shopping, looking into the bookshelves and everything, and whiled away, because not only was the train at midnight, but it was also as usual late. Now, usually when parents leave you on your own, the first thing they caution you is against strangers. Why? You never know. Children can be kidnapped by strangers. So they ask you never to accept anything given by the strangers, also not to talk with them. Now, while Arun was loitering, he got tired and he sat down on his luggage, waiting for the train, when a simple looking lady, she was dressed very simply in a simple white sari. She had no jewelry or anything. She was very, very simply dressed, and looking at her, Arun was slightly touched. Why? Not only because of her simplicity, there was also a touch of sadness in her eyes. And also she sympathized with, she showed her sympathy towards Arun. This touched him a lot. He knew that he was wrong in talking with the strangers, but he couldn't help himself. He wanted to uh, accept her simplicity. He spoke to her when she asked him if he was traveling alone. He answered in the affirmative, saying yes, he was traveling alone and he was big enough to travel alone. Immediately, the lady said, yes, I'm sure you can travel all alone. This touched his heart. The um, trust that she showed in his courage made him feel touched, and he started talking with her. And when after some time, the lady offered to give him some snacks in the railway canteen, samosas, jalebi, tea. So he accepted her generosity, went along with her into the railway canteen, and they happily chatted with each other. No one, neither did he intrude into her privacy. And she, in turn, though most of the time she was listening to him when he was talking about his likes, dislikes, about his friends, but she never inquired about his whereabouts or about his parents. This he liked about her, and they continued chatting for a long time, enjoying jalebis and all the snacks offered by the railway canteen. After some time, they came back to the platform, and there he happened to see his friend Satish. Satish was a friend of Arun, and he was accompanied by his mother. So when Satish introduced his mother to Arun, Satish's mother, seeing that simple lady beside Arun, automatically assumed that she was Arun's mother. So she said, oh, you're traveling with Arun, you are his mother. Before Arun could contradict this, the lady replied in the affirmative, saying that she was Arun's mother. Arun was shocked. He looked at her, but he didn't like Satish's mother, who was a domineering type of woman, very harsh in her speech and everything. So he did not object to her reply that she was his mother. And they continued talking. In the meantime, Satish kept on cautioning. Rather than her son Satish, she would admonish Arun, and Arun did not like this. He hated the Satish mother, but he was very, very polite because she was elder to him and did not want to show any disgust that he was feeling. And when she said, don't talk with strangers and everything, immediately he retorted that I like strangers. At this, Satish feels very happy at his reply. He's standing behind his mother and shows a thumbs up to his friend, who was courageous enough to retort to his mother. But the mother disagrees with him. She is very angry, and she angrily complains to that the lady who was dressed in a simple white sari, whom she assumes to be Arun's mother. In this way, time passes by, and soon the announcement comes that the train is to arrive. Satish's mother keeps on grumbling. It's such a nuisance coming all the way at night to drop the children, because you cannot trust the strangers. And that's the reason why she had to sacrifice and come to drop her son. All this is not liked by Arun, but he keeps quiet. And soon the train arrives on the platform, and you see that the the lady in white sari and Arun keep looking at each other. They do not speak much, while Satish and his mother bid each other favor. Arun, just before he gets into the train, kisses that lady on her cheek and calls her mother. He feels she has taken the she shows love and simplicity towards a lonely boy, fed him generously and everything. And this is, his heart is really touched by this. And that's why he reciprocates and calls her mother, kisses on her on the cheek, and then the train leaves. This is the story about the woman on platform number 8 by Ruskin Bond. It is very easy for you to write the question and answer, because most of the concern revolves around the theme. You can write it in brief. You needn't write more about it. Just how Arun was traveling all alone at midnight, and a stranger, a lady dressed in a simple white sari, comes forward and gives him company because he was all alone, and how Satish mother, with her domineering ways, is disliked by Arun. But he believes in being very polite towards the elders, and that's the reason why he doesn't much retort back to her. And at the end, how Arun calls that lady his mother and kisses her on the cheek. I hope you have understood this. It's very simple story, children. And as you know, Ruskin Bond is famous for writing these simple stories. The next lesson is a gift for Christmas. A gift for Christmas by William Sidney Potter. William Sidney Potter is also a very famous short story writer, commonly known by his pen name O. Henry. His pen name is O. Henry. Do you know the meaning of pen name? In olden days, like I said, arts were not approved by people. When I talk about arts, I'm not talking about the present arts, that is civics, commerce, and economics. Arts here is all about beauty, whether it is literature, painting, dancing, all these come under sculpture, drawing. There's so many different fields of arts. All of them reflect on innate beauty. In those days, because see, you suppose you are a writer, you write books, but it takes months for you to write a book. And when you sell it, if it is well written, it is accepted by the public. There are times even good painting, sculpture, and all are not accepted by the people. And that is why you do not get regular income. And that is why in those days, people never appreciated art. And also there were different reasons for it. Like take for example, they were mostly eccentric people. They never kept to usual timings. They had their own time, odd timings. The way of dressing and everything did not match with those methods of society. So basically, they were looked on. If you have read storybooks, uh, like take for example, Enid Blyton, you come across Uncle Quayton, father of Georgina, who liked to be called George in the famous Five series. You hear he's a scientist, but when they dress up also, they don't bother about their dress, they don't comb their hair, they don't bother about food. They are in their own world. These geniuses all are very, very eccentric, because you will suddenly see everything, say it's a church, everyone is calm, there is silence everywhere, and suddenly you hear someone humming away. That man suddenly gets a tune and he starts humming. He doesn't realize other people are staring at him and everything. This is how they behave. And even in the middle of the night, suddenly they wake up and you'll find them writing it down, because once they go to sleep, they may forget it. And that's why they get up and write it in the middle of the night. So basically, you'll find all these genius are very, very eccentric. And like I said, you don't get a regular income. So in olden days, parents were very hesitant to allow their children to go for such things. If you don't mind, I can give you one example which you can understand clearly. If you have seen the Three Idiots, you will notice that the two friends of the main hero, their parents were not happy about one, because his parent, he was the breadwinner and he needed to complete and get a good job to look after the family, and the other because he was interested in photography, his parent was not happy about it. So basically, like I said, in olden days, people never understood what art was. And that's the reason why they take up pen name. Instead of publishing their own name, they usually write by another name, even though when they become popular, they slowly it comes to the limelight that their actual name is so and so, but their pen name is O. Henry. So this is the reason why O. Henry had taken up, William Sidney Potter had taken up his pen name, O. Henry. And here it is a beautiful story about a couple, Jim and Della. This story revolves around a couple, Jim and Della. They were very young, in love with each other. He was only 22 years old and he was earning, but his salary was not sufficient. But they were so madly in love with each other, they somehow managed to live and be very happy. They were very happy. The trouble was he was earning only $12 a week. Out of that $12, $8 was the house rent. $12 he was earning. She was not working, and out of which $8 went towards house rent. So you can imagine how much money was left for the other expenditures. But even then, Della was trying to save as much as she could. And towards the end of a year, she could only save $1.87. Now, it was Christmas Eve, and she wanted to buy him a present. But with $1.87, what worthy gift could she give her husband, whom she loved dearly? She wanted to give him some beautiful gift. But she thought, she went around, but she couldn't find anything that she could buy. She had done her best. Throughout the year, she had strived to save as much as she could. But the earnings were very little, and she could not save more than that. Now she was depressed. It was Christmas Eve, and she wanted to buy. And she stood near the window thinking about it, looking out, and here the author has beautifully given a description of the gray cat on the gray friends, the gray atmosphere, basically telling you how gloomy everything was, the way they lived. They couldn't afford to live in a very good place and everything. So the background also shows us the conditions were very depressing. Anyway, she looked out and everything. She was very depressed. And then she happened to look at the window and saw her lovely brown hair. She had lovely brown hair, which she had tied it up. And she went quickly towards the mirror and released the hair, and they came tumbling down. And then she got an idea. At first, she was all shaken up, because that was her precious thing that she had. She did not want to cut her hair, but she knew that people would love to have that lovely brown hair, wavy brown hair. So she made up her mind, though there were tears in her eyes, she made up her mind, went quickly out and went to the shop where they took the hair accessories for the hair. And there she said, how much would you pay me for this? So immediately they said, we would pay you $20. $20 for her beautiful hair. So she was satisfied. Immediately she said, cut it off. So they cut it very short. And she taking that $20, and already she had $1.87. So total she had $21.87, and went shopping to find a worthy gift for her dear husband Jim. And there in a shop, she was able to find a beautiful watch chain. What do you mean by watch chain? In olden days, the people had fob. You know the meaning of fob? I should have brought it. I have it at home. So a fob. I'll show the picture of a fob in my next class, children. It's a watch which is put in the pocket. People, this is called a wristwatch. This came later on. Earlier, the fob used to be put in a pocket, and a chain was attached to the button of the shirt. So whenever they wanted to see the time, they would just pull at the chain and look at the watch. And though it is mentioned as watch in the book, it is actually a fob. It is a pocket watch and they need a chain for it. And she found a beautiful platinum chain, simple but well made. And she remembered Jim, like her precious thing was her beautiful brown hair. What Jim had was a beautiful gold watch given by his ancestors. He had a gold watch and she wanted to buy a chain for him. And this costed her just $21. $21. So with the remaining 87 cents and the beautiful watch chain, she came back home. But she was a little nervous. She felt very anxious because she was in love with Jim, and Jim in turn loved her, and her beautiful, precious thing was her hair. So she was wondering if her husband would mind her cutting off the hair. She was anxious, but also very happy because she finally got what she wanted. And she waited eagerly for her husband, kept everything ready. The dinner was ready. And as the time came near, she became even more anxious as well as happy. And when the bell rang, she quickly went and opened the door. The moment she opened the door, Jim kept looking at her, staring at her intently. So immediately she burst out, I know I've cut my hair, but don't worry, Jim. My hair will grow very fast, quickly. Please, I know I've cut my hair. She was very, very anxious and sad that Jim was looking at her in a very intently. And that is why she said, and then she said, don't worry about my hair. It will grow fast. Come quickly inside. I want to show you my present. Jim didn't say a word. He just went and sat down on the couch. And quickly she ran to bring her gift. And she gave it to him, which he kept aside. And he in turn presented her his gift. You know why he was staring at her intently? Because he had brought a set of combs for her beautiful hair. She had once, when they had gone window shopping, he saw that she craved for that comb. So he sold off his watch and brought the combs for her. And that's why he was flabbergasted when he kept looking at her and found that she had shot him. Both had brought something worthy for their beloved, but in turn, they had to sacrifice. She sacrificed her hair and got a set of combs, and he sacrificed his gold watch and got a watch chain made of platinum. So in this way, always you will find that O. Henry keeps writing the stories in such a way that has a unique ending to it. So it is very easy, children. Once you know the story, you can always answer the questions very easily. Now coming to the third lesson, that is The Doctor's Word by R.K. Narayan. You must have also heard about R.K. Narayana. He also is well known for his books, especially the Malgudi Days, Swami and his friends. He is very, very famous. This is again a very simple story about two friends. One is a doctor, Dr. Raman, and his friend Gopal. Both are childhood friends. They grew up together, studied together, played together. But once you grow big, you take up different careers, you tend to move away. Even then, they always met at least once a month. Gopal would come to Dr. Raman. He was doctor, very busy. So he would come to his clinic and wait till Dr. Raman had finished off with his patients, and then both would have dinner together and catch up with their whatever uh, they had missed, the events that took place, the happenings in their life. They would catch up with them, whatever they had missed in the past month. This went on for a long, long time. Now, one day, Dr. Raman was as usual busy when he happened to see a small boy sitting waiting for him outside his clinic on the bench. He was Gopal's son. It was only when he saw Gopal's son, he recollected that he hadn't met Gopal for the past 3 months. He had been so busy because it was mostly Gopal who would come to his clinic and they would catch up with it. He was so busy that he had forgotten about Gopal and did not realize that he hadn't met Gopal for the past 3 months. It was only when he saw his son that he remembered. And even then he was busy, he went on. And when he found a little time, he inquired. He went to the boy and inquired the reason. He answered that his mother had sent him because his father was sick. Immediately, he couldn't leave. He wanted to go and meet his friend. But the time next is not coming. Okay, I'll erase it. Anyway, he was busy. He had surgeries, so he couldn't leave his clinic. And that's the reason why he waited till such time that he finished everything and went immediately without even having his lunch. When he finished at 3 o'clock, he went immediately to his friend's house, the Gopal's house. And when he saw his wife, he asked him, since how long he had been there in this condition. His friend was lying unconscious on the cot. So he was very upset about it and asked his wife, how long? She said, for quite some time, he's been in this condition. When he inquired who has been treating him, she mentioned the name of a doctor, but Dr. Raman couldn't recollect who that person was. He had never heard of that doctor's name. Anyway, he said he took out injection, gave him injection, but there was no change in his friend. He was still lying unconscious. He waited for a long, long time. Then he told the wife that he would go out for some time and not to disturb the patient. Saying this, he quickly went back to his clinic. In the meantime, while he was waiting, the wife asked him, she offers to give him coffee, tea, or anything, snacks. Though he was very hungry, he hadn't had his lunch, he refused. He was so upset about his friend that he did not want to move away. After some time, he informed the wife not to disturb him and left for the clinic and came back with the nurse and his assistant. He ordered the wife to go out, taking the siblings, leaving only the elder child who had come to visit him in the hospital. And he said he is going to do an operation, a surgery. After that was over, he was sitting beside the patient when the wife came and asked him, is he all right? He does not answer anything. So again, she asked him, is he going to be all right? At that, again, he refuses to answer, and the wife feels very upset. Then, thinking that the patient is close by, she beckons him from the kitchen to come there. He quickly goes to the kitchen and he says, I cannot tell anything now. So don't ask me any question, he says, and comes back and sits beside his friend. You can hear the lady of the house wailing away in the kitchen. At that, the patient moves, he's disturbed, and asks who is crying. Prior to that, also at 8 o'clock, he opens his eyes, looks at his friend, smiles, and goes back to sleep. At that time, the assistant feels it is better, and you can see all the people rejoicing because the father had opened their eyes. And that's the reason why the wife also thinks now everything is going to be right. But when he doesn't give a direct answer, she starts crying a lot. At this, the patient is again disturbed. He opens his eyes and asks, is someone wailing? So he quickly goes, close the door and says, no, you don't worry. You need to sustain your health. Go back to sleep. Don't get tense and everything. But the patient now is more wide awake and starts questioning his friend, Dr. Raman. He asks him, am I going to live? Now, Dr. Raman is a doctor who doesn't like to whitewash the truth. Many doctors usually never tell the truth to the patients because they are worried it will have yes, and that's the reason why. But Dr. Raman believed, if not today, in 2 days' time, they will anyway come to know. Why should we hide the truth? So he is not happy, even though his assistant says the pressure, blood pressure, everything is normal. His heart condition is stabilized and everything. Dr. Raman still feels that his heart is not up to the mark. He says, I wish everything was all right. He tells the his assistant, but does not tell the wife. Now, when his friend asks him, he's in a dilemma. He has never told any lies to any patient. But here his friend is asking him for the truth. And every patient in that town knows Dr. Raman never hides the truth. He always is the most direct doctor who always tells whatever is going to happen. So here his friend asks him, am I going to survive? So he quickly leaves the room, goes near the cart, and he sits and cries over there. And then he says, whatever the reason, for the first time in my life, I'm going to tell lies, he said. He comes back to his patient's bedside And the patient asks him again, please catches hold of Dr. Raman's hand and tells me, please let me know the truth because I have prepared a will. Children, do you know what a will is? When you have properties and a thing, it is a stamp on stamp paper in front of a lawyer. You bequeath your property to whoever wants it. Now, Dr. Gopal was worried because the will was prepared, completely prepared, but it had to be signed. And the signature was very essential. Without the signature, it is null and void. And his relatives, they were a gang of them, and he knew if the will was not signed, his wife and children would lead a miserable life because the gang would take away his property. And that's the reason why he wants the will to be signed. And he says, please tell me the truth. I want to sign the will. Now, Dr. Raman was in a dilemma. If he tells him, yes, sign the document, it means that he was not going to survive. He couldn't tell that. He couldn't take away the little hope that his friend Gopal had. And that's the reason why he says, don't worry, you will live to sign the will. Saying that, he leaves immediately the house and goes straight to the clinic, calls his assistant and says, take so-and-so equipment and go to that house of my friend Gopal and wait there because I'm sure by 2 o'clock, beyond 2 o'clock, he's not going to survive. I don't want to be there, but if he is in a critical condition, you have to administer this. He tells what all have to be administered to him. And he goes back home. Next morning, he gets up and comes to his friend's house. And there he finds his friend hale and healthy, smiling away, surrounded by his family. He talks with his friend and goes back to the clinic, taking the assistant with him. At that time, the assistant asks him, sir, can you tell me, till yesterday, you were not sure that he would, at that time, when he comes and sees his friend Gopal, his wife will be still in a very depressed mood. So he tells her, why are you pulling a long face? Be happy. Your husband is going to live for another 90 years. Saying this, he leaves the house. So at that, the assistant is very flustered. He said, till yesterday, you were not sure about it. Now, what made you change and say he's going to live for 90 years? At that, his friend, Dr. Raman says, I myself don't know how this miracle happened, but he has turned round the corner. And now there's nothing wrong with his heart. He's going to live a healthy life and live for a long time. So this is the story about Doctor's Word by R.K. Narayana. So children, we have done 3 lessons today. First one was The Woman on Platform Number 8, written by Ruskin Bond. Again, Ruskin Bond is also a famous writer known for his stories, stories for children. The second was by Sidney Potter, A Christmas Gift. William Sidney Potter, known by the pen name O. Henry, is also a famous children's writer, and R.K. Narayan also is well known as stories for common people. Malgudi Days were his famous stories. So with this, children, I end the session. Have a good day. We'll be back tomorrow with the remaining 2 stories of non-detail. Thank you. 5 minutes.